Three, two, one. Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And really excited today. I have an awesome guest who's into talent, who's building solutions for talent, right? It is awesome. So let me introduce everybody to Trevor Higgs. He is the founder and CEO of Catalyzr, like the name too. Catalyzr.
Thanks.
He is modeling top performers. So the software models top performers, either for internal or external, lets you know who the best people are in your organization. I'm sure we're going to partner with them because we do talent and they do talent. So this is great stuff. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and tell you about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us first about the superhero backstory. So I always like to start with the backstory. You were telling me in pregame that you're doing custom software development. You're doing that for a long time. So why, tell us the backstory that brought you to Catalyzr. Like, how did that happen?
Sure. No problem. So my backstory is just your typical, I'm a guy out there working. No, but I started off, I was doing management, development management at Credit Suisse. By the time I got done there, I worked with a lot of great people, implemented a lot of great systems. I left, I was head of global HR technology. So I had seen all the software side and I saw the evolution from on-prem to SaaS. After that, I went into consulting. I was at Accenture. And at Accenture, I helped build out their HR tech strategy group. I wound up writing their SaaS point of view, and I'd go around to all of our clients. I was lucky enough to go all over the world, talk to some of the biggest clients in the world, and tell them about where I saw the future of HR technology going, and
Nice.
work with my clients to develop their strategies and plan around that. And then finally, I kind of capped off the journey with I went to Johnson and Johnson, and I was in HR. So I did HRIT, I did HR consulting. Now I was in HR, and I was a global head of candidate experience there. And they were just, fantastic group of people in their recruiting organization. And we really built some innovative, award-winning like talent experience platforms and tools.
Love it.
So because what the thesis was is that, we spend billions of dollars on marketing so we can attract, engage, and retain customers.
Mhm.
Well, why wouldn't we use all those same tools and technologies to attract, engage, and retain talent? Right. And
Love it.
all of that stuff. So we built some really interesting things and dug down deep for that. Now, one of the things that I realized as I was going through all that, I kept hearing a lot of the same themes, and the themes would go along something like this. How can I find more people like my best salesperson? Who should we invest in to be this company's next generation of leaders?
Right.
I have a limited number of dollars to spend on training. Who who do I teach what so
Right.
that I get the most money out of, I get the most bang for my buck out of that.
Definitely.
Right. And all of them came down to it all came down to a question of like, well, how can I tell if they're going to succeed?
Right.
Right. Now, at that, you know, it all comes down to, and what it all came down to was essentially, they seem like very disparate, questions. One's learning, one's recruiting, one's leadership development, but it all comes down to, well, one root cause or one root thing, which is selection. How do
Mm.
you select people to make them leaders, to hire them, to
Right.
train? How do you do that? And that was the problem that my co-founder and I kind of initially set out to solve, which is how do you solve for selection?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay, so that was where we got to that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you said that you're newer, right? So where are you in your journey right now? So do you have an MVP out? Are you
Yeah,
building the MVP? Or are you to market and trying to get customers? Like where are you right now?
right. So right now we have built actually we started building during COVID actually. So we wound up having a lot of time on our hands. So we built probably more than an MVP at this point, and that's actually kind of one of the interesting things is just we've built a fairly robust little product that can do a bunch of different things.
Nice.
And you want to talk about all the different things, but it doesn't necessarily, that doesn't work. I can talk to you about that later when you get to like, what are the problems you've been having?
Right.
But so we built that MVP. We officially kind of launched in May. We are looking for finding some initial pilot customers to build out, make sure we've got our implementation down, and then really just start building and scaling and momentum for that. And that's where we are. And then after that, we have to mainly do a seed round of funding and grow. We've
Nice.
built a product. Basically, now we're just ready to grow.
Yeah, so give the so we get it. So selection, it's like I have these great people. How do I find great people like these people? So how are you doing it? So at a high
Sure.
level, give everybody an overview of your platform, like what it does and
Yeah.
how does it work?
Okay, that'd be great. So I'm going to take an example that I think as a recruiter, you would understand, right? So I think every recruiter could emphasize with this, and so would every hiring manager, is you go to a hiring manager, you say, hey, what's your job requirements? What's your job description? And
Sure.
that manager immediately turns around and goes, Mary,
Mhm.
I need 5 more like Mary. She's
Right.
fantastic. She hits her sales quota. I don't understand how she does it. Like I've got 10 guys who can never make their quota, but Mary knocks it out. Clone Mary
Right.
and life will be great.
I love it.
And that's my job description. I'm like, great.
Mhm.
How do we do that? Right. So that's, I think it's relatable. Everyone understands that. So what we do, how we solve for that, right? To solve for selection, what we really figured out was you need to kind of quantify potential.
Mhm.
Right. And what that means is Catalyzr goes through and we identify high potential people like Mary, right? Or we find actually we identify high potential people who match your top performers
Right.
like Mary. So
Mhm.
you can select the right people when you bring them into the role. Now, what we do with that, right, is first we will meet with, your Mary or Marys, because you can do multiple, and we create a profile of success. We use cognitive science to create a profile of success
Mhm.
around what they look like.
Right.
And the reason why we do that is because cognitive science is shown to be kind of the best predictor of employment success and the ability to learn on the job, which, as we all know, with skill, with the new focus on skills and the rapidly changing technology, is more and more important. So we focus on the cognitive ability, such as critical thinking, problem solving, conscientiousness, reasoning, those things, because that's been shown to be really effective at,
Nice.
um, at predicting success. Then we take that kind of synthetic profile of success for your company. And what's great is it's specific for your company, right? So it's a role, it's for your company, it's what's been successful there. And then we run candidates through it, or we could run internal people through the same set of assessments. And what we do from that is we're doing our algorithms are doing matching algorithms on the background. We look at all these different points and we say, okay, we match them and we give them a score, like a really simple to easy to understand score. We
Yeah.
call it Catalyzr quotient. And it's like an HR metric that shows how well aligned you are and your skills and abilities or your abilities are, what your potential is for that role.
Mhm.
So the higher the Catalyzr quotient, the higher your potential to do well in that role, the easier it is to understand, right? So we'll give that every candidate will get a score, and then what a recruiter gets is they get a slate of their candidates, and it says, here is your highest potential to lowest potential. Now, we're not saying that you should hire based only on that, but what it does is it helps you prioritize and who you should talk to first, and then it also helps you find some people that you might not otherwise have thought of
Right.
because they're doing, because they are a cognitive match. And that's great. What the hiring manager gets out of it is they get clones of Mary, or they get people who are very close to Mary in terms of what they do. So
Well,
that has real bottom line fix.
well, we should talk more about your product because I mean, I think you might be using AI. I don't know if you have AI in your tech, but AI should be able to go out into LinkedIn, into the Google sphere, and like be able to find these people too,
Mhm.
like in a very because we all know as recruiters like what we want,
Mhm.
in a candidate, but then we have to go into LinkedIn. We got to do a search, we got to find the person. And there are tools being built that I could share with you because I that are doing some of this like proactiveness, but maybe that's not your market. So who is
It,
your ICP? Like, so I'm thinking that bigger companies would need this, right? Like bigger companies that are hiring more, but who are you selling this product to? Like, who's
well,
your ICP?
so originally I was saying, oh, you got to be a large company over 1,000 people. But what we realized as we've gone through and we've looked at this is it could be anyone who has, I have people I want to model that would be great. And I
Mhm.
don't have time or I don't have a ton of money. I don't have a lot of that. So it's really like hiring managers, sales managers who want to have meet their quotas for sales. Right? There's some statistic I read, like only like 28% of their salespeople meet their quotas. Thank
Right.
you, Salesforce. Right? Okay, how do we get that better? Well, let's model your best people, because otherwise just have churn that comes, that goes through their constant. They'll have a constant churn of their lower performing people. Well, let's stop that churn and let's do that. So
Hmm.
I'll look at business heads, salespeople, um, like recruiters, CHROs, heads of talent. I've been talking to about this. They get very excited about it. A lot of people are like, oh, we could use that for a better a better leadership development selection course, which is good. But it's a little harder to implement in their minds, right? So we're really focusing in on the recruiting module part of it, because it's easy. You go to your best people in that role, you say you're fantastic, they take these assessments, and then recruits come in and they do that.
Yeah.
It's funny, you were talking about the market, and the market is incredibly focused on AI tools, especially skill selection tools.
Hmm.
And while they're excellent at identifying kind of capability and readiness, right? They'll say, these are 10 people. They all have the skills that Mary has. Just to go back to Mary. So they
Right.
have all the same 10 skills that Mary has. That's great. But what we do is we tell you, great, of those 10 people, these three are actually cognitively close to Mary and they have the highest potential to succeed. Look at those three people first. We we don't see ourselves as like against like working against the skills or the AI skills tools. We see these actually, it's not either skills or potential. It should be skills and potential. We
Yeah.
can integrate, we can pass the number down to those tools so you could see it all in one spot. And then it would say, oh, wow, yeah, these are their 10 people. They have the skills, they have the capability, and these are the people who have the potential. And that's a really
Yeah.
powerful
I mean,
combination.
somebody has to, from what I'm hearing, somebody has to first invest in your assessment tool, so to speak, right? So they basically they're going to invest in it, right? Then they're going to get it to people, like they're like people are going to take it, right? Like
Mhm.
people. I mean, so people actually have to. So in a recruiting process, a lot of times there are tests, there are
Yep.
assessments. I had one client that, football, I think I see a football jersey in the background. So it's like
Yep.
the Wonderlic test. Like I actually had a client that made people do the Wonderlic test, right?
Mhm.
So no, I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a way to do an assessment where you're talking to a group of people and you're like, how close is this person to marry? Like
Right.
these five people we're trying to choose against, which one is closer to marry than the other ones, right?
Right. So who has the higher potential to succeed? And that's trying to get that nagging question. I think the difference between like our solution and assessment tools are kind of like two things. It could be in how you use them. So a lot of companies will use it as a knockout criteria. Oh, you
Mhm.
didn't get over an 80 on that, you're out, right?
Right.
What we do is we're about placement. So if you had, say you have three roles open, right? And you had somebody came in and you have people that you had success profiles for all three roles that you did with Catalyzr. And you have an applicant who comes in and they apply to one of those roles. Okay, they would go through the assessment piece, and what they'd get is a score for that role. And the recruiter would get a score for that role. But the recruiter and the person would also get scores for the other two roles, because it takes like that to just run the assessment algorithm against it. And what
Mhm.
you might find out is that the person might not be great at the thing they applied for, but might be fantastic for role number three.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, you could bring that person over and have better candidate utilization, right? And say, oh, I didn't lose this talent. I didn't ignore this person because they didn't happen to apply for the right thing. We can go find out where they would be really great. And that's an excellent candidate experience, right? From a candidate side, they would get something that says, hey, people like you have also been successful in this role too. Maybe you should apply for it. It's more of an Amazon-like experience. So that's what we really think. That's what we were thinking about there. It helps with candidate utilization, experience. Also, it winds up the side part of this, which I hadn't intended, was we keep your candidates in there, and that's great. So even if you don't hire them, but you have another role that shows up, turns into a baby CRM, because when you go and look and scan for people, it says, well, here's all the people who applied, but underneath it says, here's all the people who would be potentially great at it. And it'll pull up anybody who's in the database. So you could go find that person again and say, hey, I've got something for you. And that's how it helps build a better candidate slate, which should help with getting you higher performing people and cut down any sort of turnover that you had.
No, I love it. I love it. And so what's really interesting about you too is based on your background in the past, you haven't necessarily said, "Yeah, I've sold software before." So now you're like selling software. So I got to tell you, you have the right demeanor and the right talk track to be a software sales guy. Just to let you know, because before I started my company, I was a software sales guy. Like that's what I did before I started my company. I sold software, I sold technology. So that's what you're doing now. You're like literally selling software. So you're like you put the hat on. You're like I'm a software sales guy now. But you've always sold. You said software development, custom software development. You've always done that, right?
Right. So actually, that is one of the biggest challenges that we've had is that none of the guys are actually trained salespeople. So we've been learning a lot of it on the fly,
Yeah,
a lot of marketing on the fly, and messaging. Actually, it's funny you said that. I appreciate that because messaging's been super difficult. As I
yeah,
said before, like it, you can use this for a lot of different things. As I said, you do it for leadership development or learning or mobility or any of that stuff. And my natural temptation is to be the proud papa and tell you about all of it. But that gets super overwhelming for people. So I've
yeah,
been really trying hard, like really, this is, it works well here. We want to talk to you about just that.
yeah,
And if you like it, great, we can talk about other things. But I think the most value add it's going to have for a lot of places is going to be how do I find, model your top performers. And I used to write business cases at Accenture all the time, and I was all about how to HR add value to the bottom line.
hmm,
Well, that's how you do it is like, take the people and your most critical parts of your organization. Let's model them. And when you hire them in, awesome. We'll get people who are just like them. And then that should add real bottom line value to the company.
yeah, yeah. So let's get into the challenges. You said it earlier. So you just said one of them. So you're dealing with sales. You're dealing with messaging. Like, how do I do this? How do I sell? We'll talk
Right.
about that. We could talk about that later. But just talk about the challenges, right? So what are the main top two or three challenges you're dealing with besides sales, besides like
Well,
lead gen, right? What are the
well,
main things?
yeah. So a lot of it has been really hard with messaging. And then, you were talking about lead gen. Aside from that, no, I mean, the the other problem that like as a tech founder, right, you have is you want to tinker and you want to keep building onto it. You're like, oh, we could do that other feature. We could do that would be really cool.
Right.
Um, so it's that there's a tendency to want to kind of tinker with it and to let the great get in the way of the good.
Hmm.
So you want to like, oh, I honestly, we probably could have launched this about 8 months ago.
Right.
Um, but there was like one more thing that we wanted to do,
Hmm.
right? So I'd gone out and I was talking to financial services because I spent a lot of time building stuff in financial services. I'm like, oh, I know you guys got good, you have to go through IT risk if you're ever doing anything big. What's that? What are your new IT risk things? They're like, oh, it'd be great. You know, could you have application level secure, encryption? And I'm like, okay, we could. Is that needed? They're like, oh, it's like our unicorn. I'm like, okay, fine. Turn around, guys, we have to do this, right? And I should have said, yes, we're going to go do it. And we should have started selling then, but instead we took the time,
If I do
built it.
that, will you buy? If I what I would have coach Chuck,
Yeah, right.
if I do that thing, will you buy it? Will you buy a license? Like I'll
Right,
build that for you, you buy it. Like, and they go,
right.
yes, then okay, we'll do it.
That's fine. Yeah. Now I've learned a lot better to be like, yep, roadmap item. And if we have people who come and, that are in our pilot or that are buying from us, then we talk with our clients about what our roadmap should be and prioritizing things. That's been like one of the bigger things is just for me is learning about sales when I haven't had to do it before because I didn't know the thing of like, yeah, sure. Would you buy it then? No. And then to like my tinkering, if you listen to my other funders, they're like, why? So there's that. And then getting the right people around you.
Mhm.
So one of the ways that we've been kind of dealing with if I don't know it, right, and your immediate circle doesn't know something, then how do you get the right advisors,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then that's really been one of the things that we've been focused on is getting the right advisors around us who knows something about marketing, who knows something about sales, who knows something about um, even like the AP stuff, like ecosystem sales,
yeah.
right? So we're in the process of getting into the SAP store, right?
Oh
So that
wow, nice.
Yeah, we just got cleared through the first set of hurdles to get into the SAP store and to do build so we can integrate with SAP, right? Because that makes it a lot easier, reduces reduces resistance when we go, oh, we've got a connector. We can just pop right in there. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so those have been kind of the challenges and sort of how we're dealing with them to get the right people.
Yes, it's been a great podcast. I mean, I love this. I'm starting out, right? And I'm doing this now. I'm a startup, and you're like, we're probably around the same age. Like I just turned 50. I don't know
Yep.
how old you are, but
Yep.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
sort
there's
of, I,
nothing like doing a startup in your
I could
50s.
totally tell. I'm like a talent guy. So I'm like, this guy, like you, this is great. I'm looking forward to getting together with you because I mean, I'm basically I'm like a software sales guy. That's what I did for
Yep.
many, many years. But last question, two or three biggest piece of advice that you would give other people listening to this, startup founders, solopreneurs that are thinking they want to do this. Like, what are your thoughts?
Uh, make sure you know what the problem is that you're solving,
Yeah.
right? And that, because that helps guide your message and your go-to-market, and then sticking with that go-to-market and not getting distracted by, oh, what if we try this approach? I mean, everyone's going to have to pivot, and you have to be willing to pivot, right? But you can't be pivoting so much or so fast that you're going to make yourself dizzy and fall over.
Yeah.
So I think that's key, is make sure you understand the problem you're solving and you can explain it and your message is clear and digestible and other people can talk about it when you're not around. Um, and I think getting the right set of advisors around you is super key too. People who not just people that you know and like, but people who are willing to tell you you're being stupid and you really should learn how to do this, or stop trying to do everything and delegate it out a little bit. Because I think that's another problem that a lot of like first time people out there, they really want to hold on to it or they feel they have to.
Totally.
And and you have to learn how to trust like the people around you to do the job right. So
Yeah. So Trevor, awesome having you on the show. Stick around for a few minutes. We'll debrief, but I'm looking forward to following your journey. And everybody needs to check out Catalyzr. I mean, if you're looking for hard to find talent, right, you got to reach out. Obviously reach out to Trevor. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing HR tech for many, many years. So reach out to him to get some help. So it was awesome having you on the show.
hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate being here.
All
Thank
right.
you.